50 and coping.
Right, so 50 and coping for the second time from the new place.
Yeah.
Whether we get to keep that, we don't know, but it's exciting.
I hope so.
Right, first things first, this is part 2 with Adrian, who is sat to my left, so thank you for coming back. Just very quickly, I've had to postpone the 25.5 mile walk that was going to happen in October, and I've had to shove it back to December the 9th, which is a Saturday. Excellent. I think it's the 9th. Anyway, that'll do. So December the 9th, I'll be walking from Royston to Ware, which is 25.5 miles for Coffee and Coping, and the sponsorship link will be in the doobly-doo underneath us on YouTube. Right, so Adrian, last time we established that we'd got through addiction and we'd come out to a better place than you were, and you're finding a way, and then cancer reared its ugly head.
Oh, that would be right, yeah.
And I think we just need to carry on the story. We were talking about at the end of last time we realised there was no way that we could fill any more time because we'd be here all night. But I wanted to get you back. But we've subsequently realised that we're probably not going to do it this time. So what we're going to do this time is stick with the story.
Okay, yeah.
So I'd like to look at the cancer from the skin cancer, and then we got to the place where you were shoveling snow. I can't say that.
Yeah, I think we got to a point basically where, so after the shoveling snow, just to recap, and couldn't breathe, couldn't seem to get any air in, as if I'd sprinted 100 yards.
Right.
So I knew something wasn't right.
Yeah.
And basically we got to a point where I was taken to A&E, I collapsed. They got me into hospital. An initial assessment, they realised there was only 5% of one lung was working, or 10% of one, 10% overall, I think. Right. 90% wasn't working. So they had an idea of what was going. They took to check my histology, did the math, and pretty much worked out that the cancer had metastasised, which is basically the cancer that was at its singularity point has then spread. Right. Internally.
So it's gone to your lungs at this point.
So at that point, yeah.
Because it was just your skin, right?
It was just, yeah, and that was 10 years prior.
Okay.
So that's right. So 10 years prior to that, I'd had noticed a couple of irritated moles on my back. There was itching. When I got them checked out, and they were removed, and they'd come back as cancerous.
Okay.
So they did further incisions, took extra skin away. In total, over the course of about 12 to 18 months, I probably had about 40 operations, all purely precautionary stuff.
Right.
Occasionally they would remove a couple of moles because they didn't quite look right, send them off to be tested, and they'd come back that there was some cell damage or the cells were changing.
Okay.
So they would do another further incision, take further stuff away. So back looks a bit like a road map.
Right. So all of the treatment was cutting them out rather than any
it was
drugs
it was all precautionary stuff to make sure that it didn't metastasize. Because back then, I mean, immunotherapy is the drug for melanoma. Yeah. The chemo, etc., doesn't work. So, and immunotherapy has only been around now. Well, it's probably been around now for probably about best part of 10 years, I'd say. Obviously, that we're going back. My journey to date through this second bout of cancer, if you like, has been sort of 7 years plus. So, doing the math, it's about 17 years, around about that number. Right. That immunotherapy has been around. So back then, when I was first diagnosed and I had to go through all the rigmarole of having further tests done, go for MRIs and CTs, because one of the moles that they'd removed that was cancerous had a root, because every mole has a root system on it. It's like a living organism, really. Yeah. And if that root grows and gets into the bloodstream, then that's where the cells, it can spread and it metastasizes. Okay. So we have to go through all of that rigmarole of seeing if it had. And at that time, as I say, immunotherapy wasn't around, so it was pretty much a death sentence. So there was, that wasn't particularly pleasurable time, but still, all's well that ends well. At that time, they said, the scans come back clear, it hasn't spread, so you're all good to go.
And that was all prior to the accident, and
yeah, absolutely. This was all. So that, funny enough, I do believe that something clicked there, but probably consciously I suppressed it.
Yep.
But deep down, something triggered, and I never addressed it, because I remember when I was at hospital and I had all the relevant operations done. I was going through the constant process of having things and whatnot removed. That there was never any kind of consultation around how you're feeling. So there was never anything like that was kind of addressed.
Yeah.
So I just got on with it. Went straight back into work, just carried on as normal. And I do think that probably did have a contribution to me going down the path that I went.
Right. Okay.
I'm not saying that I wouldn't have gone down that path anyway, because I
Yeah,
think.
but if you've got that level of unaddressed trauma, then there's no reason not to go down that road, if you see what I mean.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
looking for some way to cope. What's a better way to cope than disturb your senses and pick up?
Yeah, exactly. I think they do say that we're born with this illness. It's part of your lineage, put it that way, because you fight. Certainly in my family, and then a lot of our friends and whatnot, and people within AA that I know, there's a lot of siblings and parents, grandparents that are all addicts.
Yeah.
And it seems to be a bit of a common trait.
I mean, I come from being an addict myself. I come from a family that remarkably is lacking in that addiction side of things. But I think I was talking to my colleague Anne at work about the disease of addiction, and it's difficult because some people fit into that mold. Like you say, their families walk down the addiction line. There's 3 alcoholics on this side and a drug addict on that side. It's quite simple. But I think there's also a lot of people who don't fall into that trap, and maybe as part of a trauma response or even just mental health, degradation over time, then you can walk into addiction. So it's seen now as a thing that you can't catch. But addiction, depending on where you're at, I mean, anyone who injects heroin is probably a bit lost. Do you know what I mean? So their propensity for addiction there is easier. But if you're looking at addiction for a way out as well, that makes total sense, because you are backing away from everything that you know and can trust, to the point where you're relying on a substance to make your decisions for you.
Absolutely.
And obviously the definition of addiction is you no longer have the choice to pick up or not.
Exactly.
I think it's interesting. I'm starting to push back a little bit about the disease of addiction, but only because it doesn't fit the mold. And like everything, there are always people outside of that accepted, that accepted bunch of rules. So where did we get? So So you've literally, they're saying to you now that it's metastasized.
Yeah.
And this fluid in your lungs is due to cancer.
But so basically what happened is the tumour, albeit a very small tumour, I think at the time it was only sort of 3 or 4 millimetres in diameter, say. But it was causing like an irritation to the wall of the lung. So ironically, the immune system and the defence system tries to get rid of it itself. So and doing so, that's where the fluid's created, and it's kind of it just kind of sets the wheel in motion, and it just keeps going. So what it is, it keeps trying to fight this thing off, and it's just filling to the point where it'll kill you.
Yep.
And it would have done if I didn't have treatment when I had it done.
So do they literally pump your lungs?
They drain them. Yeah, and that throughout this journey is probably the worst experience I've ever had.
Right.
And I'm not, I'm used to a needle through treatment.
Yeah.
I've had too many infusions that I can remember, but this thing was, it's a tube, like a hose pipe, basically.
Yeah.
And I woke up with it in. Obviously, they did the operation to put it in, but it was the taking out. They just literally say bite down your teeth and just pull the thing out your side, and it was about that long. So it's probably like pulling a sword out of your rib cage, but
nice.
And it makes my toes cool now just thinking about it. That was quite something. So basically, I was admitted because obviously they knew what was going on. I had to go through the process of having the lungs drained due to the damage that had been caused through the lungs being flooded, if you like.
Yep.
To want a better phrase. They had to perform a procedure where they using like a form of it's like a talcum powder, but it's this powder substance that glues the lung to the wall of your chest.
Yep.
Which is a permanent thing.
Yeah.
And which you can only ever that, from my understanding. I mean, medicine may have moved on, practices may have moved on since those days, but my understanding at that point, it's not something that could be done twice.
Yeah, it's a one-time thing. When you have a collapsed lung, through whatever reason, usually the fluid in that, and then they have to stick it to the chest wall so it can stay open.
That's right.
But if that doesn't take, you're done. You know, that lung's
was
gone.
it. Yeah, exactly. I think it's called, is it pleural infusion? Something like that. I think it's something along those lines.
Technical terms are not for me.
So that was okay. So that was where I was diagnosed with, and that once it's metastasized, it is for me to say it's in stage 4.
Yep.
So there is no way back from stage 4 melanoma, metastatic melanoma.
Yep.
It's just a matter of how you respond to treatment.
Yep.
And then, so I guess at that point, I met the consultant. This on the hospital ward. I had the pleural infusion done there. Then they shipped me off to London Hospital, UCLH, where they did some other tests and some other bits. So all in all, I was there for about a month.
Right.
And then they released me, and then it was going through the process of, right, now you need to go. I'm trying to think of it. Royal Free, that was it, in London, for the first consultation to see what they were going to do with regards to treatment moving forward.
Okay.
By the time I went back in, I did another scan which was about 6 to 8 weeks later, once I was made more recovery from the ops. They wanted another scan pre-consultation so the new consultant could assess what was there. And by that time, things had grown. I think the one in the lung there was now 2 or 3, and they were starting to grow a bit. So that's when they decided, as I say, immunotherapy is all there is. But like with everything within technology and medicine, so in this instance, of course, medicine it's always advancing. We like to think so anyway. So they say so. So there's always new or advanced formulas to that kind of treatment coming out all the time. So they sat me down. They said, right, well, if we've got to go through to see how your genes respond with the treatment first and foremost, we're going to do some tests and see how you react to that, so we can decide that you're all right with that. And if that works for you, then we've got 20% of surviving patients that have been on this treatment now for 5 years.
Right.
They said, and things are changing all the time. So within another 5 years, they might bring something else, which means you can survive 10 years. So my mindset was, which is all a bit odd when I look back, but it was just, okay, well, we'll just keep going with it. I might get another 10 years. I might, and within that 10 years, something else might come up to give me another 10 years. So that's kind of where my mindset was. So we had a consultation, and they decided to put me on immunotherapy drug called IPI. It's a combination drug, actually, called IPI, Nivo or something or other. That's particularly important, but if need be, I can always look that up. But and that's quite a powerful pair of units that work, and they're renowned for making you quite ill. And I think throughout that treatment, I pretty much spent 3 months in bed.
Right.
It was, and then it was just white. It was awful,
And what's the treatment? Is that tablets? Is that infusion?
No, it was infusion. Yeah, and in fact, that's a good point there, actually, because they started on the infusion, which is the IPI and the Nivo, or words to that effect, and also they gave me a chemo tablet. Now, these chemo tablets, they say, or my understanding of it is that they actually work for 9 months.
Okay.
And that is kind of their lifespan, and then they stop for whatever reason. I don't know the science behind it, but then they stop, and so they're not considered a treatment. But nevertheless, they give me that to see how I respond to it. And after, I think it was on that point, it was every 4 weeks treatment. So I go back, and I'd spend. I did say 3 months in bed, didn't I? 3 weeks. That's right. So it's 3 weeks pretty much of sickness.
Yep.
And then I start to make a recovery for that last week, and I start feeling better.
And then
the day you
poison
went back
again.
in, and then you're back in having the
I've heard that quite a lot. Actually,
yeah,
it's like, you know,
chemo's renowned for
you've
that.
got I mean, my dad went through chemo and all of that, and he obviously put a brave face on it. So I don't think I ever got the truth. But it basically, as soon as you start feeling better, it's time to go back and get it all over again.
That's
and I suppose that makes sense, because if you're still sick, you know, and you're too weak to have it, you can't have it.
Exactly.
So they've got to leave it in that.
That's exactly it. But so we went through that, and but the best part of well, we kept going back every month. You know, scans, treatments, and obviously assessments, and things started to shrink.
Right.
By the time, I must say, by the time that I'd actually started the treatment, because it was a 3-month window.
Yeah.
After, because of my recovery from the operations, etc., I had the consultation, and then over the course of that period, it was about 3 months. By the time that we actually started the treatment, the cancer had spread again. So at this point, there was about 3 or 4 tumours in the lungs, and it had spread to the liver. There was 2 or 3 in the liver as well.
Okay.
So anyhow, but after the next set of scans a month later, that seemed to have stabilised.
Okay.
And the month following that, it started to reduce again. And then that continued, same thing, month in, month out. But so great, we thought we're on the right path here. Things are shrinking. It's manageable.
Yeah.
And if we can keep it like that, then we can stay like that. Hopefully, it will keep working, and then something else might come along.
Mm-hmm.
So anyhow, 9 months passed, back for scans, and I was at this point feeling, apart from obviously the side effects of the treatment,
Yep.
but pre-treatment, obviously that week of recovery, I was feeling good. And I remember sitting there having a conversation with a guy, well, how you doing, how's it all going, how's your treatment? Because you get to meet a lot of other people that are going through similar sort of things, bless them. Mm. Sat down, the consultant met me in reception, walked, and sat me down, went, okay, it's spreading, it's stopped working. So
Right.
now this point, as I say, 9 months, chemo tablets had stopped working. So it seems like, and this is it was never explained to me, to be honest, and hands up, I never really asked the question, but no one said, okay, that we're putting this down to the fact that the immunotherapy drug's not working and the chemo tablets have done their job.
But they can't do it anymore. Kind of
and that's where we are. So we're going to now stop that, and we're going to put you onto another drug, which is an experimental new immunotherapy drug. So as I was saying, things are changing all the time.
Yeah.
Called spartamizumab. And we'll try you on that. We're going to do 3 months this time. I believe that's the case. Which they did. And then we'll see where you are after that. So we did that. Great, fine. Come back. Right, it's unfortunately, Mr. Cook, we've got to stop the trial. So because this is a new drug, it's a trial.
Yeah.
And it was a blind trial. Okay, so none of the nurses, as far as I'm aware, understood what the medicine was I was on. It was a new drug. The only ones that really knew were the consultants and the team, etc.
So you could be on the drug or you could be on a placebo.
There you go.
Right, so it was because a blind one is some people have the drug, some people don't. They have a placebo,
exactly.
They have a sugar tablet or whatever.
You got it exactly.
Oh, sure.
Or just so. This was a bit of a weird one because they unblinded the trial. And behold, it was what we were just saying, the placebo. It was placebo.
So just go back a bit there. So when you go on that trial, you have to sort of sign your life away to say I'm like a human lab rat here, and I'm just going to do. And is the weight of that explained to you, or are you just thinking, well, it's the only option I've got? I'll sign it. Let's just do it.
Exactly it. That was my mindset at the time. It's tunnel vision of these. I'm in these guys' hands. They know what they're doing. I trust their judgment. I have no other understanding of what's going on.
Right.
They're here to save my life. So I'm in the lap of the gods.
So the other option
and they are the gods.
The other option is death.
The other option, exactly.
Really?
So where do I go from here?
Well, can I just ask though? So it's good that you were part of this trial, but at no point were you part of that trial. You were the X side of it. You're given a placebo. You're not given the drug. So you're not helped at all. It
helps the trial, doesn't it?
Yeah, it helps. It helps medical history, but it doesn't help you. I'd have gone batshit fucking crazy.
Well, do you know what? Irony kind of comes into play a bit, because my mindset at the time was, they've not given me the drug.
Yeah.
Once they give me the drug, everything's going to start working.
Okay.
So I had, I'm very much a half glass full kind of guy, generally. Yeah. So, and that was where I was. So I was actually quite upbeat. If they'd have come back to me and said, you're on Spartamizumab, this new wonder drug that everyone's putting all their hope into, it's not working. There, next door's shut, away you go, pack your bags and have holiday and, say your goodbyes, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, but no, so anyhow, so I was like, okay, great. So they said, well, now we're going to put you on the Spartamizumab.
Oh, okay.
By this point, obviously, it's showing that we're making the point it's not working.
Yeah.
And finding out I was on the placebo, by this time it had spread quite considerably.
Yeah.
I'd had about 7 or 8, possibly more tumours in the lung at that point, 4 or 5 in the liver, and it had spread to the spleen as well.
Okay.
So...
How are you feeling at this point? Like physically?
Physically, the only symptoms of cancer I had was the cancer treatment itself.
Right. So in yourself, you were like bodily.
Yeah. I would never have known.
No. Okay.
I wouldn't have had a clue.
So that tells you, and you watching, that just because you haven't got symptoms doesn't mean you haven't got cancer. You know, which is terrifying, because okay, and I'm going to apply it to myself because that's the only reference I have. But I've had some illnesses, I've had some things, and you think the worst, and I haven't had anything. But sometimes you feel like you were shoveling snow, right? And you had 10% of your lungs working, and the only reason that you went to hospital is because it boxed you, right? And that's the only reason you knew it had spread. Do you know what I'm saying? It got that bad before there was a realization. And then I'm still stuck, I'll be honest with you, right? They knew it was spreading. They knew that things were getting worse, and yet they still gave you the placebo. That in itself is terrifyingly neglectful, surely.
When you look back,
because they know that nothing's happening because they've given you nothing. Well, that's pissed me off.
But it is, but that's the point of the trial, isn't it?
Yeah, but why is that?
The trial isn't there to help Adrian. The trial's there to help. Help science.
You're given a book, basically, of a wad of paper in a language I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's typical doctor's jargon. And there's no way in the world, unless I give that to a specialist who's damn good at reading, to go through that with a fine-tooth comb, you're going to understand what you're going through. And I'm going to be frank, again, my mindset was, I'm in their hands, I trust them, I put that to one side, let's just get on with it.
Do you see it now as misguided trust or not?
I will choose my words carefully, because I've got a lot of respect. There's 2 consultants that I work with, and I know in my heart of hearts that they meant well. Okay. And I do. Dr. Shaw being one, and Dr. Nathan being the other. And I don't mind saying that out loud. They are, and I still say to this day, she most certainly, and as he did, have my back.
They had your back.
But there's a protocol.
Yeah.
There's a rule that they have to abide to, and a set of laws that they have to implement. And their hands are tied in a lot of ways. That I think we'd like to come on to another time. Yeah. But
I think most people would take your view. I mean, it's a very different situation. My cousin was diagnosed with terminal cancer. They said, well, you could go on a trial at Addenbrooke's. You've got 9 months to live, might give you another month or 2. And she said, yeah, but what does that mean? And they said, well, similar to you, you have a treatment every month, you might feel rubbish for 3 weeks. And she said, well, do you know what? For the sake of those extra month or whatever that we don't know whether we'll get it or not, I'm not going to bother. I just want to write my bucket list and go and have a fish finger sandwich at the pub.
Fair play to her.
And and she did. And I think it's a really brave decision. I think most people would probably take the approach that you did, and I think in that instance, you initially think, extending my life is the most important thing. I don't think you're necessarily thinking, and you're certainly not prompted to think about the quality of your life.
I don't think you are. And also, I mean, I'm not being funny. Like, we're all men, right? And we've all bought flat pack furniture, and we've all bought new electronics, right? Which, if you don't read the manual, it doesn't fucking matter. But there's fucking things.
That's a good analogy.
We all know that no man is going to read that, because one, they're not going to understand it, like you said.
There you go,
and two, I'd tell you, I know how I'd be. I'd be like, yeah, no.
You don't want to. I mean,
I don't want to know.
Yeah, you don't want to know. Exactly.
It's like we said about
you're going to grow another head or something. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want to look at the side effects. You want to look at just that light in the distance.
That light at the end of the tunnel, which can turn out to be a train.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the problem.
Yeah, good call.
Okay, I mean, I admire. I mean, it's very easy for me to go, I'd be really angry about that. I don't know what I'd be, because I'm not in that position. Touch wood, thank God that I'm not. Well, not that he exists, but that's a different thing. But it's very telling that where you've come to in your life, where you don't look back at that with a snarl and give it, fucking hell, I've been ripped off here or something. You're calm, you're erudite about it. You can talk about how you feel, but there's a lack of emotion because you've reached a point now. So how did you go from that point to, what's the treatment circle now? Where do you go when you're told that there is nothing left medically?
Well, no, so we unblinded the trial.
Yeah.
To find out I wasn't on the Spartan-Mijalab.
Yeah.
So the next step was to put me on to the Spartan-Mijalab, which is what we did.
Did that work that time?
No. So after we went back, and again, now by this point, obviously being on the blind trial, not having any treatment, I was feeling absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this is maybe not, I won't go into so much detail, but conversation for another day, but my diet was awful.
Right.
And I mean, awful. My wife was going and buying me cakes every morning. I was eating 2 or 3 like Chelsea buns for breakfast, 2 or 3 packets of biscuits at night. So the sugar volume, and at that point, again, there was no real education. I shame on me, I didn't do my own research, and I'm a strong advocate of that now.
Yeah.
So I had no understanding of sugar and sugar's kind of relationship with cancer. So my diet was awful, but but generally I felt well. I felt okay, and I was skipping into hospital. We're okay. Let's just crack on. Today's gonna be a more positive day. And we did the so we had the scans after the 3-month period of being on the Spartan-Mijalab.
Yeah. And
they said it's completely spread.
Right.
She said by this point I was just over a year and a bit in.
Okay.
of treatment. So they said it's now spread to your brain. Said you've got something like 12 tumours on your lungs, 6 or 7 on your liver, it's in your spleen, it's in your spine, and there's 7 or 8 tumours in your brain. She said, and once it gets to your brain, she said, I'm afraid, Mr. Cook, there is no more we can do. So, I said, without kind of that registering, I said, well, so what's the next steps?
Right.
And there was like my nurses who I got to know quite well, they all had their heads down, and 2 consultants. They were all kind of looking at each other, and they went,
there is no next.
Take your family away, get your house in order, go and spend. And I said, okay, right, well, how long? I said, what, a year? And they went, 2-3 months at best.
Right.
All right, okay. So, and I was on my own then, because to be honest with you, all right, we knew that the treatment wasn't quite going to plan, but we was hopeful that going on to the Spartan-Mijalab, we would just I wasn't going to get a death sentence there and then. So my wife, bless her, was still working. She's the only one working. So I was sitting there on my own. I don't remember getting home. It was all a bit of a blur. But it's the strangest thing. The only way I can kind of explain it, there's a guy I really love called Daniel Smith who does a spiritual program that I love, but he says you can't explain this. It's all about samadhi, what he does. But he says you can't explain what samadhi is. It's a bit like trying to explain when someone gives you a terminal death sentence. Now, I'm not generalising here. This is just what's relevant to me. And it's like trying to explain to a blind person what colour is. That was his analogy. So you can't dress. There's no way. And within it, I can honestly say that in that split second, it's like every cell in my body changed. The complete dynamic of my mindset completely changed. My outlook, my perspectives, my personality. Just, not for the worse. I didn't get angry. I just become more reflective. And I kind of see, it's the strangest feeling, Lee. It's like everything kind of opened up and I saw kind of everything as it was. And something inside me clicked. And I don't know how it is for everybody else. As I say, I'm not generalising here. But I thought, oh, that ain't it. This isn't it.
So it wasn't a hopeless feeling.
It wasn't. Opposite. It was very surreal. And everything slowed down. And there was that moment. There was no panic. There was no, right, what do I do? How am I going to tell my kids? It was more like, okay, right, that's that. Let's park the bus on that. Let's get back on the road and see where it takes me.
Brought you into focus almost.
I've had a small. It wasn't cancer, but due to my addiction, my kidneys gave up. Then my liver gave up. Then things stopped working in hospital, and then they came and told me then that I was dying, and I had 5 or 6 days.
Wow.
And at the time, now I'm quite angry. I'm quite happy. I'm quite full on, and I just went and I remember going very quiet, and I just suddenly thought, I need to call my dad. And I must have said it out loud, and the nurse said, well, how do you want to do that? Where does he live? And I said, he lives in France. She said, we can phone from the desk. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it in a minute. And she was looking at me, obviously waiting for me to go bang. Or just waiting for something. And I didn't give anything. And I remember being completely and utterly numb, right, inside, just thinking what was next. So, okay, I don't have to go home because there's no point. And at the time I was homeless. Like I was just being moved into a flat when I got out of hospital, if I got out. And it was just a bit odd. It was, I remember phoning my dad and telling him, saying, look, you don't know about any of this, but I'm literally dying. You need to get on a plane. And my dad, he'd been a vicar, or that he was, but he's not. You're not allowed to call him a vicar. Clergyman. He was a clergyman, and also very calm human being. Just turned around and said, okay, I'll be there. And it's only France, I won't be long. And the next day, 2 days later, because he couldn't get a flight and the train was down. So 2 days later, he was walking into the hospital and I'm getting up and putting my clothes on, because what my body has done is shut down, started up again. So once I was free of all the toxins and the drugs, even though that this had happened and I'd gone through detox, my body then just went, actually, I'm not done yet. And the doctor said, well, fuck knows what's going on. I'll be honest with you. His exact words was, fuck knows. I have no idea what's going on with you, but your bloods are normal. Your blood pressure is through the roof, but it's coming down. And then they will do it. And I paid no attention to all of the noise around me. And I think something inside of me, and this isn't about me before we carry on, but something inside of me just said, this isn't it. And it resonated with me because you said the same. I didn't think, well, I've got to go and buy a coffin, or I just thought, yeah, this isn't it. This isn't the end. No. And now, if you haven't lived through this, you would just see that as denial. But it's not denial, it's real. It wasn't the end, and I fucking knew it. And then I had to explain to my dad why I wasn't dying, and I was going home. And he went, and his reaction was, well, I best buy you lunch. And I'm like, yes, best you do. And we went to lunch, which was like, and I wasn't very well, but it was a bit odd. But that where you just were like, okay, we're going to park that, we're going to look at this, what do I've got to do? And that really resonated with me. And I think unless you've gone through that, and I'm not trying to be like, we've got this and you haven't, but just understand this: when you're told that it's the end and you have a feeling that it's not, fucking listen. And step forward and try and get to where you're going, because you never quite know what's going to happen. And with you, I mean, you took control and I want to get to that right now because I feel like the clock's ticking. But you've got that sentence from them, and you haven't exploded, you haven't melted, you're still you, and you feel all right in that moment, but everything's numb and blurred. And then you just said, I didn't remember getting home, because how can you deal with that? So you shut down, didn't you?
Yeah, well, there was one minor detail that I've actually forgotten, left out, which was, when I say I kind of left to go home, I was leaving to go home. So I think faith has a big part to play.
Okay.
Again, I keep using the phrase "a conversation for another day," but I think it's quite important to come to discuss it at some point. But something in me, something triggers just to say this ain't the end. I believe I will be okay.
Okay.
But she said what they had to say, got myself up, coat and ready to leave. As I was walking out the hospital door, there's a tap on my shoulder, and it was a junior nurse. And she said, "Oh, sorry, Mr. Cook, so I managed to track you down." She said, after you'd left, we had a phone call from UCLH, who are running another trial, for which we're wondering if she said there's quite a process to go through to get on the trial, but you're quite young, relatively fit. Would you be interested? I was, absolutely, of course. And that's when they booked me an appointment to go, and that's where I met Heather, who I mentioned, consultant who was at Cancer Centre in Whitmansworth. I can't remember the name of it now, it'll come to me in a moment. But that's when basically I was introduced and offered to go on to the final trial, which was the last trial that I went on to, which was the strangest thing. So anyhow, we had this appointment for about, because obviously bearing in mind my situation, I can't wait a couple of months. According to them, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So I think it was about a week later, I was back into town, back at the UCLH this time, and met with her. She said, right, okay, a few quick Q&As, this and that, and then she said, all right, we'll do some more scans. She said, need to do some bloods. We've got to go and we've got to do a bit of exploratory work. We've got to do some samples. I had to cut some bits out of my lung.
Right.
So took me in for a minor op to do all of that, which they did, and then they had to check. There's something to do with your cells, because I've got what they call non-plastic or other cell, which is like a mutated gene. And they said, as long as we just need to make sure that what we're going to give you doesn't react with that.
Okay.
And anyhow, so bearing in mind at this point, I was pretty much of the understanding that this treatment isn't working for me. And my brain, as I said, I'm not thinking about death, doesn't even enter my head.
Yep.
It's where do I go from here? And that's where the holistic thoughts start to come into play. And God bless my brother-in-law. He got straight in touch, and he's an advocate for veganism through and through. And he started to send me some bits and pieces through. He said, "Hey, I want you to learn about what sugar does."
Yeah.
He said, and maybe we could start getting you on a diet, changing your diet. And at that point, this is where I'm in overdrive with regards to I'm tunnel vision. I'm in the zone. I'm gonna beat this shit.
Yeah.
Great. I said, let's do this. He said, so okay. So what I'm gonna do. He said, I'll do you a list of different fruits and vegetables. He said, because we want to almost pretty much zero sugar, and also we're going to try and get your system alkaline, away from a non-acidic system, an alkaline system. Now at this point, I was just going with the flow, taken as what he said as gospel without doing my own research, and I went under his wing, and he started to he sent me these programs. I became vegan overnight. Strict raw vegan, cut out all processed. He said no processed foods. Kel, my wife, started to make me some bits and pieces up, all using pulses and beans and that for protein, and everything else was quite low sugar, low carb, because obviously carbs turn into sugar.
Yeah.
And well, I ended up staying on that diet religiously. Now, bearing in mind I was a sugar fiend. It was one of my other addictions. There's always, so you know what it's like, obviously.
I've been heard to say that biscuits were the addiction after heroin.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Sugar is just as addictive, apparently.
Yeah.
So I I bit the bullet, and I said, I'm going to do this full on. So that's what I did. So bearing in mind, I've got these scans and went through the process of all of these tests, and I was accepted to I passed.
Right.
So they said, right, we'll start you on the trial in a week's time. So in between this is where all of this, so the diet change has just come into play. And also, my wife, bless her, she made a few calls and asking if anyone had any other advice, from a holistic perspective, of anyone he can talk to.
Yeah.
And one of her good friends said, there's a guy called Sean who he's a Buddhist, and he owns a spa. And she said, funny enough, it's over there. I didn't even know it was there. It was tucked away down a little side road. There was a sign out the front, but I've just never taken notice of it.
Yeah.
And Kelly set me up a meeting with him. I went in and saw him, went into his little temple, and straight away I felt something. And I've always had spiritual tendencies, but I've never acted upon them. I ended up, should turn left into the spiritual way, and I've always done it right. And every time I've turned right, something's happened. So and I keep getting dragged that way anyhow. So he sat me down, a few questions, very tearful. That's when I opened up. He's got away with him, and he kind of got a few things out of me. And he said, right, he said, I'll tell you now. He said, cancer struggles to survive in an oxygenated system. He said, we need to get your oxygen levels up.
Okay.
He said, you're on a diet thing. He said, you've started your diet, brilliant. So that's a good thing. You're cutting the sugar out. He said, I want you in there every day. He said, in the pool, swimming twice a day. He said, and in the gym, exercising, doing a bit of weights. He said, every day.
Right.
Free of charge. He said, I'm not, yeah. He said, that I'm going to, and I want you to do some Reiki healing with me. He said, and we'll do that once a week. He said, and all of this is free of charge. And so we started, and I embraced it. And then he started to teach me a little bit about Buddhism.
Okay.
This is all relevant, certainly for future conversations. But so anyhow, so we started all of that. So now I'm starting to learn a bit about the practice. I'm learning about energy work. I'm learning about holistic healing. And I'm starting to also, through what Mike has given me, I've started to do my own research into holistic medicine, foods, what sugar does for the system. And I was incredibly strict with myself. It literally my head is telling me, and it's actually quite ironic, and this is, I'll be very careful how I word this, but I think the addict mind, because it become an obsession, it helped get me through.
Yep.
So it helped me, give me that drive to say, whereas normally it's a negative perspective, they say that devil sitting on one shoulder, telling you, whispering in your ear, if you do that, you'll be all right. Or this was saying, right, you got this. You're going to have one biscuit is going to spurt. You can almost see the sugar doing it, and it just put me off. I didn't want it. So, as I say, it's a really kind of real strong sense of irony there, but I'd strongly feel that the addict way, or the addict mindset of obsession, helped me stay on that path.
It's almost flipped it, isn't it?
It's the
obsession on avoiding it.
There you go.
Rather
than exactly what I meant. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
To lose the 5 stone I had to lose from 23 stone to 18, my addiction, and you're the first person I've ever heard say that. My addiction flipped, where instead of it was ingest everything, it was fuck off. Set my standards, and I did it. And I did live sugar free. I even made a video on the YouTube. Look in the thing. But that ability to have that singularity, be it a drug, a drink, or whatever, that flipped for me. And it was, you can't eat that, you can't do this, you've got to do this. And it's interesting because you literally are the first person, and your situation was completely different to me. But that addiction flip and that singularity of thought, where it changed from bad to good, got you through. I can so relate to that, and that's a bit of an epiphany for me, to be fair. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. So, obviously on this path, now the treatment starts. We're going for treatment, start off with the first bout of immunotherapy. Now, go through all the paperwork. The drug that I'm on, spartamizumab.
No bollocks.
But with an inhibitor. So it's a booster drug, which apparently is supposed to boost your immune system, which allows the medicine to work better, if you can call it that, the drug to work better.
Yeah.
Okay, so we went on that, and a month later, first set of scans, everything was stable. Okay, carried on. I stuck with the diet. The trolley comes round, the sandwich little man, as I'm having the infusion. Do you want a sandwich? Do you want full of sugar and bloody margarine, seed oils and everything else in it?
Yeah.
A can of Coke or whatever? No. And there's everybody else in the room having a teas with 3-4 sugars in it. And I went, no. But bearing in mind, I'm still learning. You know, I'm not, I'm even to this day, I'm no medical expert, but I've done my due diligence on diet and certainly around cancer. So I'm, and I'm not preachy. I know, certainly wasn't at that point, but I just, carried on doing what I was doing, stuck to my diet religiously. At this point, still 0 sugar. Now I lost quite a bit of weight, but then I was overly overweight anyway. I went up to about 13.5 stone. I'm not the tallest guy in the world, and it showed. I was quite a big boy, but and that was predominantly the sugar. So, and lack of exercise and everything else. So I went down to about 9 stone. It's purely through the diet and the exercising. Obviously, I was exercising 7 days a week. Went back, as I say, first set of scans, everything was stable. Carried on, no side effects, feeling great, starting to get a lot more energy because I'm getting more oxygen in the system. Went back the next month and started to see shrinkage. And so now I'm thinking, hang on, Ade, you've gone through 3 bouts of treatment and nothing worked. Now, all of a sudden, you're back on one of the treatments that you didn't work, whether there's an inhibitor there or not. Yeah. It was so aggressive when you was on the Spartamycia that I don't know whether I could put a rocket up its backside. I still don't think that would have worked. But the only thing that was different was my diet and lifestyle.
And your mentality.
And yeah, exactly. And the mental aspect that went with it.
That's so mad. I mean, okay, right. So you've already had this drug once and it accelerated, right? And all right, the inhibitor's there, but there's got to be an argument for the fact that you completely changed your lifestyle, your eating, your regiment of exercise, and that guy in his temple opening his arms metaphorically and physically to bring you in for free to save you, there's a narrative about Buddhism right there and that human being, because if you hadn't have had him who was there going in and brought you in.
I certainly wouldn't be where I am today.
And that's 100%. And what's weird is that temple was there the whole time. So that's like one of them books where it magically appears and it disappears.
There you go. And
but it's fucking real.
It's right next door. Yeah, absolutely. There is definitely magic to it. 101%.
So at that point, do you know how many other people are we talking about on the trial here? And do you know how they're...
Well, it was when I was first on it, there were, I think there's about 300 people in the UK and there was about 1,000 people worldwide that were on this trial.
Okay, that's a large amount, right?
I'm the only survivor.
Oh, fuck, man.
Everyone else passed.
Right.
And Spartamycia Lab was discontinued because people were dying from the treatment. Right. Not just the fact that the drug wasn't working for them, but the drug was actually killing them. So they half of those that were put on it had to come off. I never had one single side effect. And I put that down to the lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I guess part of signing your life away to do the trial means sometimes it'll kill you. And that's probably in the small print somewhere, is it? And that's
possibly.
Well, it has to be, doesn't it, I suppose?
Well, yeah. I mean, you are a lab rat. You're trialing a poison, however way you want to dress it up.
And are the other patients seeing you thriving, and are they asking questions as to what you're doing? Are the doctors asking questions?
They were, yeah. I mean, I don't want to be too judgmental. I know I wasn't preachy. It did get to the point where I was watching people sitting there putting spoons of sugar in it, and I said, do you I said it's worth maybe doing a little bit of research on
into sugar
what sugar can do.
Yeah, well, I do that at work.
Well,
just sitting next to people.
But again, I think it's such a difficult one, mate, because it's that trust element. It's like when I said earlier about putting these people that are the gods of. They will save your life.
Yeah.
Where else do you go? Who else knows that? You know, these guys are medically trained. They know everything there is about, how to treat what the anatomy of the body is. They know what works. What do you know?
Yeah.
You know, he's a scientist. You're not.
And this is deemed cutting edge.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the best you're going to get.
Absolutely. And this is all there is. So that no one was really interested.
I have to say, right, there are two things I have to say. First of all, we're on 50 minutes.
Wow, that's flown.
So look, we've told the story. We've given an inkling into the fact that you changed every facet of your life from a sugar ingesting monster to somebody who's done the work, doing, the changes, looking at diet through enabling from your brother-in-law, from what's the name of the guy in the temple? Sean. Yeah. And all these people. But what I want to end with this, okay?
Yeah.
Without those people changing showing you the way that change can happen. Also, talking about oxygenation of your blood. Who the fuck knows about that? Right? And that's awesome. Like somebody's gone, hold on, look, cancer doesn't live well in oxygen, mate. We need to do that. We need to change you to an alkaline system, not an acid system. Who even knows about that? Right. We do have to end. Right. You are coming back. We've talked about this. And then we're going to talk about how the holistic way you healed yourself with the drug, but it's very telling.
That's a fair point. It could have been a little bit of both, and you'll never know.
But it is very telling that you are the only one that survives, and you are the only one who made that superhuman change in your existence. I want to thank you for your story, because quite frankly, I've had two epiphanies in this one conversation.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Can I just say as well, 50 and coping is about finding your way to cope for all situations. And if you are in a situation where you have reached what you think is the end, I can tell you from my personal experience, and Adrian has just told you, that the end might not be the end. Change what you're doing. Look at your lifestyle. Have a look at how you live and find your answers, because some people are lucky enough to find the truth that saves them. We'll see you next time.